So I'm Rob Carson. We're talking about guerrilla warfare for the blue team. So to start off, how many of you have unlimited budget and all the staffing you need for your security program? Yeah, there's always like one.
I had a dream last night.
Oh, okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, and that's kind of the point of this. So neither did Al-Qaeda, neither did Daesh, neither did the Cubans, the Irish, or our American forefathers, American revolutionaries. Same thing. Underfunded, understaffed, we're still able to create effects on target. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So you ever presented something, nobody understands what's going on, can't get the support you need. We're going to talk about communications, how to push out your I/O campaign, things like that. And there's a lot of memes, so if nothing else, it'll be fun. One of the things, though, that is a challenge with this talk is making sure that we try to stay doctrinally accurate, but I'm going to be talking about Che Guevara, Mao Zedong, all sorts of people. Some of these are more infamous. They're not necessarily all good people. However, they were able to create effects, and we're going to talk about their tactics and techniques, not their politics, if that makes sense. I won't get canceled. All right, so what's my background? Why am I even qualified to talk to you? So I was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. So I did unilateral counter-insurgency operations as an occupying power in Iraq. I also lived with the Iraqi Army for a year as a host nation advisor, and that was an incredible experience because I was able to see the effects of people and process when they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the American muscle, and they were very, very effective in dealing with their own problems. And they had good messaging, and they did it with way less, and that was very impressive to me. So I want to talk about that. And then obviously corporate background, so I've sat on the blue team as the head of security a couple places. Now I help people do what I call the arts and crafts of cybersecurity, putting in security programs, ISO, stuff like that. Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right. So, what this talk is not about. This is not a talk about overthrowing your boss. All right? Changes in leadership will produce undesired results. Also, if you take anything back from this, don't go back to your company and talk about you're going to launch an insurgency campaign. Or you might wind up starting your own company. Ask me how I know. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about a background. So, how many people here are veterans? Okay, a few people. So for those of you with a non-military background, we'll do a little bit of a primer on what warfare is, so we kind of get a little bit of a background. It'll be great. So, first-gen warfare, right? That's basically people online with bows and arrows up to muskets. Think Revolutionary War, the British side, second-generation warfare, same thing. They're still online fighting each other, but now we've got rifles, right? So World War I, how the Europeans fought. Your third-generation warfare, think of that as like World War II, big maneuver elements, things like that. It's also similar to probably your networks in a pre-COVID world, where you had your network, you had your big firewalls, you had your safe space, there was a perimeter, you know. But now, in a post-COVID world, we're now in fourth-generation warfare, which is decentralized, right? Yeah, so we're talking decentralized, we're talking ideologically driven. That's what fourth-generation warfare is in the real world, but at the same time, like, there's no safe space anymore. Everyone's working all over the place, and it's the same kind of concept. And then your fifth-generation warfare, which is still debatable, is essentially non-physical, more for less ideologically driven, but generally more of like your ransomware, stuff like that, where you're just more pirate side of warfare, if you will. All right, next thing. Three-block war. So this is a term coined by General Krulak. So the concept is essentially, in three contiguous city blocks, you could be handing out candy, taking care of people. You move to your second block, you're doing patrols, governance, things like that. And then in your third block, you could be in kinetic action. It's not that different than a day of a security person, where you wake up in the morning, give some training to people, help them out, you know, working through different problems, go to your change management meeting, governance, and then you activate your incident response plan at 4 p.m. on a Friday because nobody ever hacks you on Tuesday at 9 a.m. when you've had your first cup of coffee. Like, it's my experience. But what's important about that is it requires a different mindset, right? So the way you act during those different blocks is critically important to a good insurgency campaign. You know, so when you're handing out candy, you're being patient with people. Like we used to hand out Etch-a-Sketches when they got infected, so they had a tablet, they were secure for a minute, you know? Like, solve a problem instead of like my analysts screaming at them because like they let their kids do homework on their laptop and now we have Roblox. Yeah, I'm not the only one that's had that problem, huh? You know, so we want to make sure that we have those rules of engagement as our mindset, right? Like how do we operate in those different environments is a key piece to an insurgent campaign. Because essentially, like if you create, if it goes bad, you start yelling at people, people will stop talking to you, right? Yeah, the best part though is when you are in instant response, that's when you can tell people to shut up and color. Like we got stuff to do, right? All right, hybrid warfare. This is essentially, yeah, I told you, got good names, nothing else. Think of that as when Russia invaded the Crimea in 2014. They were sending out text messages to the local population to help with their effects. So it's using technology and so the virtual and the physical to create an effect. Same thing as somebody sending in a Dell laptop to your company or a MacBook, whatever it is. They know that's what you use. It gets shipped in, gets into your inventory. Next thing you know, you've already created you've put a laptop on your environment. You have no idea there's command and control issues. And that's where things like, you look at hybrid warfare, that's where things like some of these frameworks, ISO, SOC 2, those things help because essentially you're looking at physical and virtual issues and you're not just focused on one thing. So the other thing about hybrid warfare that I look at is, you know, you can push out all the phishing training you want, but like I used to, in a pre-COVID world, I'd put posters up, rotate them around. Has anyone ever thought about inviting their executive team or some of their business leaders to one of these hacker conferences? You ever thought about that? Yeah. We bring them here because then essentially like they're starting to get the understanding of what's going on for you. Because right, because being on the blue team sucks. Like, right? You're underfunded, it's not sexy. Nobody's like, yeah, I want to be a blue teamer when I grow up. Like, no. Like, it's not a thing, right? So bringing them there so they can they get that understanding, they go, oh crap, right? And then of course you've got your tripwires, you know, tracking dock flow, honey nets, honey traps, things like that. All right, any questions on background? Good? All right. Prerequisites. So what do we gotta have to launch a good insurgency campaign? You gotta have an attractive cause. So with the Sunnis, in 2006, 2007, we had what was called the Sunni Awakening in Iraq, where we got the Sunnis who were disenfranchised. We were able to work with them, create a cause where they were able to take control of their own areas and essentially have their patrols. They started doing neighborhood watches, things like that. They got control. They were disenfranchised. They were already dealing with a lot of blue on blue, with fighting their own people, things like that. So you want to have a cause that's going to get people to care. So what does that mean for the corporate world, right? Well, if we're running around going, the hackers are coming, that's not going to get no one cares, right? So if your cause is something about what the business does, what do other people care about in the company? It's not about you, it's about them, right? How do we protect people's paychecks? Because like, at the end of the day, you can buy your employees LifeLock, you can't buy them new jobs. So what do we want to, what's going to matter, right? And also you want a cause that's going to generate outside support. That's another big piece is, you know, what do your customers care about? They care about these things, leveraging that. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Your investors, things like that, making sure that you have a cause that has internal support and external support. So, you know, if your cause is to help protect this line of business, which also ensures that this executive gets his bonus, that's a good cause, right? It's not about the money, it's all about the money. So help them, you know, that's what you gotta think about your mindset, how you're talking to people. Does the cause resonate with them? Do they care about what you're talking about? And then doctrine and mindset. Can anyone here tell me whose coat of arms that is? Or who said this quote? Oh, that's cheating. Anybody else? All right, so that's Che Guevara. All right, so again, what you take from this talk is important. One thing that what you don't want to take is do not call your fellow employees peasants. Okay? It won't go over well. But the point is pretty valid, right? So you want to work with your employees, right? Screaming at them because they did something stupid, they clicked on something is not going to be a very effective process. They're going to stop talking to you, they won't tell you what's going on, and the next thing you know, it could be worse, right? So having that good communication with your people, taking care of them, helping them, understanding that like we've all clicked on stuff, you know, except for this guy right here, but the rest of us, you know, we've clicked on stuff. So think about those rules of engagement. How do you engage with people? You know, one of the things that we did is we put in a warrant system so that if a manager came to me and said, I think my employee's on Facebook all day, I don't care. It's a management problem. Unless there's a security issue, it's not my problem. So it keeps my team, which is, you know, I got a small insurgency, right, or a small team. What are we focused on? What matters, right? And that way, it stopped us from being big brother, so other employees were more interested in working with us because they knew that, like, hey, we aren't just snooping around on people's stuff. We don't care unless there's a reason. And who has time? Let's be honest. Yeah. All right. Planning. Communication planning matters. All right. Does anyone know these people? Nice. That's impressive. All right. So, the difference between these two guys is one of them had good communications, and one of them is no longer in power. So, the guy on the left, Hosseini Mubarak, was the Prime Minister of Egypt, or President of Egypt, whatever it was. He lost control of his communications through groups of activists, things like that. They were able to get Torah in there, and they were able to get their message out during the Arab Spring of 2007, 2010, I think, in Tahrir Square, right? Got their messages out, and they created an outside support for their cause, which put eyes on what was going on in Cairo, which stopped Mubarak from potentially doing ways, using options that would have shut down that protest in a way that would not be optically pleasing, if you will. But Erdogan, this guy shut down a coup with FaceTime, right? And the point is like having good comms. He created a cause that resonated. He created almost a modern-day Tiananmen Square. He had tanks. The coup had tanks on a major bridge on the Bosphorus in Istanbul, and they had people on the bridge facing it down. He got his support out there, out into the streets to stop the coup. Like that's a cause that resonated, right? And so the point is like having good comms, right? Think about your IR response to social media. When you guys do tabletop exercises or instant response training, how often do you bring marketing into your IR training? Making sure that they're part of it, because there are some of us who are not qualified to talk to the public. Some of us that are. I'm not. I have somebody that would handle that for me. It's like there's no way. But that's an important thing, right? Is who's going to handle? What's your communication going to be like? How do we handle that? Like I love how United. Like if you complain about United, 10 seconds later, hey, DM me. Let's take this offline. Let's have a conversation. What's going on? Like that's exactly what How are you going to engage with somebody in social media? And also, like when you're talking to dev, right? Talk to them about their code, secure code. They want to talk about that. Cause that resonates. They do not want to hear about you taking away their MacBooks. It's their precious. Move on. We have Jamf now for that. It'll be fine. So, gotta have a plan, right? Making sure you have economic growth. Cause that resonates. Using that intelligence, right? So, I used to put people, I would try to find either people that like security or just that were friendly in different lines of business in a company, and get them to help be part of the solution, giving us that intel of like, hey, this is what the organization's doing, or we're looking to get into this new third party, whatever we're doing, so that we can be part of the solution. But getting that intelligence of what's going on inside the company. Insurgents are going to put people in all these different villages. You can do the same thing. There's nothing that stops you, right, from understanding that. And also you think about like your long game, right? Using your resources strategically. Shutting off Facebook on day one, probably not going to win a lot of hearts and minds. Shutting off MySpace, it'll be interesting to see who complains. Like that one I might do, like just to be like, oh, okay, we know who that is. That might be a way to gather some intel, right? And the other thing is asymmetric communication. So one of the things that marketing people did in the 1950s is they realized they needed to start doing these like working groups where they would basically start gathering more and more information from people, right? Well, that's asymmetric. So they would pull tons of information from people, how they think, what they like, what they want to do, and then they turn around using so just very quick. Does anyone know what asymmetric communication means? Okay. Did you raise your hand? Or you're drinking water, sorry. So symmetric, hi, how are you? I'm good. Asymmetric, right now, this is asymmetric. I'm talking to you.
And we're talking to you.
There you go. So, and then they turn around and get them to make those decisions. Same kind of thing. So when you're doing your training, having those discussions with people, like not maybe having dev as a separate security training, so you're talking about what dev cares about, and you can have a better conversation. You're gathering that intel on how they operate, what they care about, so that you can turn around and use your IO campaign to create the effects that you desire. Sorry, I get excited. All right, you gotta look at your ecosystem, right? What's your core business? What are the things that can affect it? Those internal and external threats, how you look at things, right? Remember, the cyber guerrilla warfare, it's gonna be limited, right? You only have so many resources, you need to create those effects. Dominance is difficult to achieve, so you need to think about where you're, like, what does that ecosystem look like? Where are you gonna be most successful? And where are you not? All right, and then threat intel. So one of the things I tell everybody is there's always two org charts in an organization. There's the official one, and then there's the unofficial one. There's the unofficial one is the one that tells you, hey, this guy has been friends with this guy for life. He goes to the CEO's birthday parties, but he's just a PM. But he's really not just a PM because he's an influencer. Or this VP brought in this guy, and these guys are boys from back in the day over here. That stuff happens, right? Every organization you've been to, or anytime the M&A stuff happens, we all know how that goes, right? New leadership, all of a sudden, extra people show up, huh? And you need to, so the other piece is for threat intel, like there's plenty of companies here that will sell you lots of cool things. I'll be honest with you, like, you can get a poor man's threat feed with a tweet deck and a have a pwned account. That's a start, right? Just subscribing to a few things, you get some news, you get some intel that way. But the other thing to think about is, when you're trying to build that threat intel, is the cost for effects, right? So if you don't know the identity of who's going to come after you, and you don't know what the risk is, you're going to spend a lot of money. Cybersecurity industrial complex is good at that. They will happily sell you lots of things to do that, but you're going to spend a lot of money with very limited effect. But if you know the identity, but it's an unknown risk, you're getting closer. Known identity, known risk, now you can definitely go against it. So building that intelligence is an important piece. And that can be, inside your organization too, right? Like, who's against you, who doesn't want, who's afraid of Big Brother watching, things like that. What are the risks, what can they do, how can they affect you? If you do nothing else, I would copy this down. This is something I highly recommend for anybody. When you're building your intelligence, building out your key performance indicators, right? So how are you going to track to see your processes are working? How do you gain that intelligence that people are doing what you think they are? How do you measure that? And what are you going to do about it? Obviously, Burt Reynolds, rest in peace. He's not a security engineer anymore, but that's one thing that I found pretty useful here. All right. We talked about poor man's threat feed. Again, the cheap way. There's all sorts of good stuff out there, but that's a start. All right. Let's talk about our assets, right? We want to embed the people, right? Decentralized workforce, social security. Got to decentralize it. Get involvement, understand their processes, training. Training is huge. I see a lot of people I've got KnowBe4, which I've got a whole comments on that, but KnowBe4 is phishing training. Are you going to train people on actually how to follow your process? How to get software approved? How to do those things? What matters? What do you care about? Things like that. That's an important piece that I think misses out. People will just say they read the policies, but that's not. They read the policies. Making sure that they know how to follow the policies and they understand what's going on. They also can, you look at third parties. If you say hey, if you're handling this type of data, I'm looking for vendors that have ISO, SOC 2, or something like that. If you're not handling this kind of data, I don't care. It's marketing, whatever. Username, password's fine. Giving them, helping them understand. One, they don't want to necessarily handle all the cool data, because if they do, the rules suck, right? All right, and remember, one of the things that's important is support is conditional, right? So as you're building your insurgency, you're trying to get your populations on your side for a while. But if you spend 4 weeks to approve Notepad++ or add them for some developers, they're going to revolt. You've lost their support, okay? So you gotta think about taking care of the little things. And then we're gonna talk a little bit more, but where can you start? Where can you actually be effective? Not trying to boil the ocean, not trying to do all the things. Like, let's try to win where we can. You have limited resources, use them effectively. All right. IO, start early. Dev is more paranoid than we are. They will create the fear of the unknown. They will create, like, they will think that the acceptable use policy is, stop them from working. They're not gonna be able to do their job. It's gonna be terrible. And it turns out, if you can be compliant and do 1,000 pushes a day in DevOps, it's totally doable. But you have, you can't use ITIL change management. Fun fact, change management doesn't mean change meeting. Just, next time you go back to your shops there. But you gotta make sure that you're using that propaganda, because propaganda is propaganda, pushing it out to inform people, okay? You can't use propaganda to fool people, that's what the bad guys can do. Unfortunately, you're the blue team. So you can't fool them, but you need to push that stuff out. Now, I've been guilty of putting ThreatBud up when we thought there was a DDoS attack, and I thought that she needed to reboot the firewall. I told them, hey, I'm monitoring the heck out of this right now. Like, one of those attack maps, fun. But you gotta be vigilant against misinformation, right? It's a critical piece of your IO campaign. Interpretation of security policies it's phenomenal what you think you said or wrote down and what was interpreted. So making sure you're vigilant against that. I mean, I had a guy the other day, he's like, well, I think, if I put on encryption, my MacBook's gonna slow down. I was like, how old's your MacBook? He's like, oh, a year old. I was like, that shit's already turned on, bud. Yeah, but you gotta make sure you're ahead of that stuff, because that's how people think. People still think encryption's gonna slow them down. They have chips way better now. And the other part is, when you think about IO in the real world, like, remember when Snowden came out? First it was Booz Allen Hamilton. A week later, government contractor. It wasn't Booz Allen Hamilton, it was just government contractor. All of a sudden, they were able to push their message of, it's just government contractor. It's not associated with a specific company, things like that. Think about like when Airbus and when Boeing has a problem, or Airbus has a problem, the other one's silent. They never sit there and go, oh, this is terrible, because that will affect their, when something goes wrong with them, turnaround's fair play. Also, it could create fear in the public of, should we fly on planes? Are they safe? Things like that. Like, that's not a productive discussion. So like when somebody gets hacked, stuff happens, well, it would never happen to me, right? Well, maybe not you, but for the rest of us. Do you have your own IO ready for incident response? That's why I always make sure like I have marketing there and like pre-canned scripts, like making sure employees are trained. This is how we answer the question when customers call in. Hey, it's under investigation, we'll let you know. Or if they have something to say, because if you don't give them something to say, they will say stuff. They'll start offering their opinions, and you have some people in your companies that would love to just offer their opinion, right? They'll speak truth to power all day. All right, let's talk about execution. All right, so where do we start first? For those of you who are too young, this is a copy of The Office, the TV show. Yeah. So, like I said, ISIS, the Marine Corps, we used, disenfranchised Sunnis. That was the place to start. So where can you build those bases? Where can you get work done? Where can you be effective? Not trying to do everything at first, right? But remember, you're using a mutual cause. Alliances can change. Just finding something that like everybody wants to win on. I was working with a customer, and it was quite an adventure with them. And we started to start with single sign-on because their onboarding and offboarding process was terrible. They had tons of user account issues. So hey, let's do single sign-on. No new passwords. Make it everyone's a win-win, right? Figuring out what you can start with that's going to be effective, as opposed to, hey, we're going to go roll out MDM and shut off half the company's phones for 3 days. Like, that's probably not where I'd want to start, Because also, like, stuff happens, right? All right. Drawn out execution. So, when you're trying to build your program or run your program, continue to improve it, there's the Mao is all about like the long walk, right? So some of the issues, like it's good to go slow sometimes, right? You want to move at a medium pace, but if you go too slow, you lose loss of will. People don't care. Missed opportunities. You know, I never let a good crisis go to waste. One time, marketing tagged. Instead of taking you to the article, it took you to some newsfeed site, some third-party newsfeed site. It got corrupted, it took you to porn. So a customer clicked on your website and took them to porn. Marketing became in scope of my security program same day. It was great. Also, you get a call from Brian Krebs. Sure, he's a great person. I don't want to get a call from him. Like, for those of you who don't know, it's the Diane Sawyer of InfoSec. Like, you don't want to talk to that guy. It's not good. Yeah, so you're moving at a medium pace, right? You know, Confucius, got to have Confucius quote, doesn't matter how slow you go as long as you don't stop, right? Making those continual improvements is a key piece. And that's one of the big things that I've seen in security programs is like, I feel like you're moving slow, but if you can make 1%, 10% improvements every week, boom. Within a few months, all of a sudden you made 100% change in your security program. You're not going to get it all done at once. I mean, there's products out here that I'm sure will tell you that they can't, but, you know, it's life, right? Like if you write a newsletter, don't do what I did and have your monthly newsletter come out once every 6 months. Maybe have like 4 newsletters ready to go so you can keep up with that. Shortcut method. So this is what ISIS did in Iraq, right? So after the military left Iraq, big boom, it went hardcore into Al-Anbar, right? As soon as we're disenfranchised, same thing. Well, that's kind of like what you do right before your audit, trying to get something done, or after a breach. Those are probably the only 2 times where it works really well, or you can get away with it because like you break stuff, but because it happens, people will be more, they might work through it with you, as opposed to other times. But otherwise, just trying to go all in can be quite a challenge. Like rolling out your policies, things like that, give it to them all at once, they're not going to absorb it all. It's all or nothing, right? All right, movement. So, yeah, I love that one. We're moving out of we got our campaign going, moving through, starting to be effective. Now we got to change our tactics, techniques, and procedures. We got to continue to change things up and continue to think through how we're going to solve the next problem. Not relying on ourselves, not relying on what we already did, but what else can we do? You know, what the Iraqis used, or the insurgents in Iraq, they used to put out garage door openers, and you drove across it, IED would blow up your vehicle. What did the Marine Corps do? I'm sure the Army did too, but I'm a Marine, so we were there. They put a 6-foot metal arm in front of the vehicle that was heated up by spark plugs that would basically set it off so the IED would go into the engine block. What do the insurgents do? Okay, they've got around that. We're going to use cell phones. What do? We start jamming communications. And I mean everybody's communications, even ours. But they couldn't go off, right? That was, continue to shift stuff around. Because like, the business is going to continue to change, so will you, right? You need to make sure you don't rest on your laurels, continue to evolve. What made sense before may not make sense again. Your risk treatment plan. You got a big thing, hey, we're putting in, I don't know, an email security gateway. We need this. And it turns out like that's not the biggest problem we have now. We need to do something else. Ransomware is the bigger problem, or whatever it is. I like to change my pen testers, stuff like that. Looking at different types of automation, like continuous red teaming stuff, like there's a company called Randori. They do continuous red teaming, so they actually exploit, they take the vulnerabilities and show what can actually be exploited, as opposed to just getting you a CVSS score that's like heavily weighted on availability, which may not be the big thing if you're not a day trading platform or something like that. So making sure you actually know like what things are actually exploitable, what actually matters. Sometimes these vulnerabilities, it's a critical vulnerability, but it's so far into your environment that if they got to that, they've already got command and control. Like, doesn't matter, right? So making sure you're thinking through those things. All right. Cessation. When you win, let's say you win something, somebody has to, they tapped out, like, okay, fine, you can encrypt my laptop. Whatever it is, make peace. right? So if you look at what was going on with the Taliban right after we left Afghanistan, they were pushing out their IO campaign was, hey, we're not going to stop women from going to school. We're going to do stuff right. That's what they were saying. I'm not saying that's what they did. That's what they were saying. They were doing that to want to keep the U.S. from coming back in because we were at that precipice where we could hop right back in. Well, and they don't want to create a new insurgency with the people they just disenfranchised that are no longer in power, right? So it's in their best interest to make sure that the population that they just became in charge of doesn't turn on them. All right. I will buy anybody here steak dinner tonight and all your drinks if you can name 5 out of these 6 people. Any takers? Well, 4 out of 5 for free drinks.
Can we crowdsource this?
You can crowdsource it. I'll buy everybody around tonight if you guys can get all 6. So I'm a military guy. So what military presentation would be complete without a specific Prussian?
Tsar Nicholas?
No, Prussian. Karl von Clausewitz. No? It's okay. Do you know all the Kardashians though? Okay. Because if you did, you should be embarrassed. If any of you know all the Kardashians but don't know these people, just saying.
Mao Zedong,
Mao Zedong?
Sun Tzu, Che Guerrera, the 3 I know.
Okay, so the guy on the top left, Karl von Clausewitz, right? So Carl, I'm gonna call him Carl. Sorry, that's pretty funny. What was that?
Good friend of yours.
Yeah, my boy Carl. So Carl was all about, he talked about a limited war. So achieving rapid effects in a limited war, right? So focusing on one thing, knocking it out, right? Not trying to do everything. That was one of the things he talked about. He also talked about updating your plan as you come to terms with the future. So understand the future changes, change your plans. If you look at how the Marines came into World War I and why World War I changed when the Marine Corps got there, I'm sure there were other people, but it's because we started doing maneuver warfare while everyone else was still in trenches. They tried to put us in trenches and we said no. Next guy, Mao. Got that one. All right, Mosaic War. So a bunch of little different things going on. Talked about that. Each battle may be different. So understand what you do is going to change. Okay, the guy with the beret, not Che. The other one, that's Roger Tranquier. Okay, French dude, fought in Algeria. There's a movie about stuff. He was all big into, his idea of interrogation was he was fine with slapping people around. They gave him the information, you give him a cigarette and say, okay, have a good day. I don't recommend that. Controversial guy. However, he was very effective. And one of the things he talked about was making sure that, and he complained about the French army, they were preparing for World War II while they were losing in Indochina and losing in Algeria because they were still trying to fight a World War II type battle in a different place. That's why, when I see these big firewalls and all this stuff, that's great, but hey, perimeter's dead. Long live the new perimeter, right? All right, so we got Tranquier. Did anyone get the
Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu, of course, because it's the most. You gotta have Carl, you gotta have Sun Tzu, right? So Sun Tzu, or Sun Tzu, is actually how it's pronounced. I learned that the other day. He says avoid a single long operation, right? So play the long game, but fight confusion, plan for loss of command and control. So when you're doing instant response stuff, kill internet, or kill email, kill single sign-on. Turns out, that's single sign-on is great, except for, hey, we can't get to the HR stuff, so we can't contact our employees because we can't log in. Oh, crap, maybe single sign-on is not great for everything. But, making sure you plan for that with your out-of-band comms. But fighting that confusion, he was big on that. Che, we already talked about Che earlier, but one of the things he talked about was that every act, everything you do should be followed along with a propaganda campaign. So when you're rolling stuff out, you need to roll stuff out with the communications around it. Hey, we're making you do multi-factor authentication. Here's why. Not just shut up and color, here's why. married to a physician. She's a wonderful woman, but she was very pissed off the other day because they're like, well, now I can't log into Citrix on my personal computer. I can only do it on this other computer. You know, smart person, but she's a user, right? What is your propaganda campaign? It's the part we spend the least amount of time on. That's why security is such a bad name. Because like they sit there and think they're going to lock you down, and nobody knows why even these things are getting put in place. They're just being told to do it, and we gotta push that propaganda campaign out there. And I said to inform, not to fool them, to inform. And then let's see here. Oops. Sorry about Tranquier. He also wants population on your side. It's important. And then Margella. So sorry about Che. So the other guy is Margella. It's Brazilian counter-insurgents, or actually not counter-insurgency, guerrilla warfare guy. Fascinating dude. He was all about essentially a guerrilla warfare needs to be a Renaissance man. So if you're familiar with Machiavelli, he wants to be able to have a sword fight and sing a song at the same time. Like you need to be able to do a lot of different things. Same kind of thing. That's what a Renaissance man is. That's the same thing as what Margellus wants a security person to be. Now, I'll be honest, I know enough about cryptography to call somebody better at cryptography than me. But at the same time, making sure we know enough about what's going on, right? And if you're from the 90s and you don't understand, you know, the ephemeral and Kubernetes and containers, and you're trying to put AV on, you know, microservers or something that doesn't make any damn sense, like, update yourself, right? All right. And then current events. Let's talk about Russia. All right, so what's great about this talk is that every 6 months, I can give this talk every 6 months, and there's new stuff, right? So let's talk about information, right? How the IO campaign's working. So Russia, they banned all the media silent message, but that message their message only generates internal support. It's not really creating support on the outside world. The Ukrainians, they did nationalize their media. So fun fact, however, they still allowed, you know, all the other reporters still inside the country, right? That generates external support. I mean, look at their IO campaign. I mean, the president spoke at the Oscars. Like, since when have we had anyone know where Ukraine was? Half the people in this room probably wouldn't, until recently. I was there in November. By the way, I'm a Marriott guy, but Hilton came with a gas mask next to the minibar. Like, Marriott really needs to up their game. Just throwing that out there. Yeah. All right, what questions we got? Nothing? All right, well, here's some references. You guys want any of those things? What I looked up? Take a picture. All right. And the other thing we're starting is the Blue Team Warrior podcast. I'm trying to get people to join, give us your stories, 8 minutes, 15 minutes, tell us stuff you've had to fight through, problems you've had. So if you're ever interested in signing up for that, it'd be awesome. It's blueteamwarrior.com. It'd be cool. Just trying to get, because like at the end of the day, like Blue Team, like no one sends you an email saying thanks for email working, right? Like they don't, you know, hey, my laptop worked great today. No, that's not gonna happen. They only call you when McAfee like ate their whatever. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you.